morning, everyone. We will continue further with the essay Definitions of Femininity and Masculinity, written by Sujata Sen. In the previous class, we discussed about the different factors that enforce the definitions of femininity and masculinity. Let me quickly summarize what we did in the previous class. So we discussed about the terms femininity and masculinity. So the term femininity and masculinity refers to the traits or characteristics which is typically associated with being a male or female. It could be, for example, if it is a female, she is supposed to be very subtle, soft-spoken, and very submissive, whereas the male has to be dominant, has to be loud-spoken, has to be very strong, physically fit, and these are some of the characteristics that are typically associated with male and female. So this essay is about who comes up with these definitions and who says this is how a girl is supposed to be or a boy is supposed to be. So this essay helps us to understand the various social processes enforced by various social institutions to strengthen the definitions of femininity and masculinity. In the previous class, we discussed about three social processes that enforces definitions of femininity and masculinity. So those were family. Family plays a very important role in enforcing this. Then the second was the media, and then the third was the social stratification. Now moving on, the other factors that enforce the definitions of femininity and masculinity are religion, education, workforce, sex, and gender. Religion. It is important to understand the role religion assigns to women. Feminism argues that most modern religions are patriarchal. It has been pointed out that God is usually a man and the agents of his wisdom are often men, and women are just passive carriers of this divine wisdom. So most of the feminists argue that religion plays a very important role in assigning roles to women. Now if you see in most of these religious scriptures and be it any religion, the first thing that comes to your mind when you say God is, it is a male. So feminists argue that this whole religion itself is patriarchal. It is male centric. So they point out that usually God is usually a man or he, and then the agents of his wisdom or the messengers of God are also men. And what are women? They're just passive carriers of this divine wisdom or this religion and other things. And feminists also argue that that a gendered religion oppresses women. In most of the religious texts, if you see, women are defined as impure, they are temptress. If you see the Manusmriti and most of these religious scriptures, women are often oppressed, and there's also a line in one of the holy scriptures that women, dogs and drums are meant to be beaten. So you find this in the religious texts. So that is why the feminists argue that religion makes women as a position that has to be given away during marriage. So they are like treated like a commodity or like an object which is supposed to be just given away as a thing or to be given away as a position in marriage. So religion, it is argued that makes a woman as a position. So she is seen as a property and she is owned by the male. Moreover, all the religious scriptures and texts assign particular gender roles. Women are supposed to play the role of wife, daughter, basically homemakers, and she should ensure that the members of the family have to be taken care of. All their needs have to be fulfilled. So she has to play various roles as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, as a wife, and she is like that thread that holds the whole family together emotionally. So men are basically breadwinners and they look after the material aspects of life, and the other things are taken care by the women. So this is argued, or this is what is the role that is assigned by religion to women. So that is why the feminists argue against these kind of practices, the religious practices which assign certain roles to women and also oppress them. The next process that defines femininity and masculinity is education. In addition to religion, education is another process and social institution that defines femininity and masculinity. It is clear that physically male and female are different, though intellectual, cognitive, or behavioral differences between the sexes are debatable. Male and female do behave differently and to a certain extent think differently, and some psychologists argue that there are differences in terms of fundamental cognitive processing. There are a number of stereotypes concerning gender differences in terms of intellectual abilities of male and female and the educational patterns that can be observed between the sexes. So even in education, if you see, there is a lot of gendered stereotypes here. There are a lot of stereotypes regarding the kind of subjects that the women are good at and the men are good at. So it is believed that women or girls are usually not good at math or science, but they are they're excellent at language, social science, and art, whereas the men are very good at art. This is just a stereotype. This is just a generalization, which is not true. And there are various examples which can prove this wrong. The very fine example is of Shakuntala Devi, popularly known as the human computer, who was a mathematical genius. So these stereotypes are do not fit into this definition of women being bad at math or not doing good at maths, and they are only good at language and arts and other social sciences. So this is also one of the stereotypes that you can find in education. And when this happens, when women are considered to be poor at math, even though, and they are considered only hardworking and sincere but never brilliant, and they are not seen as intellectual. So such gendered generalizations will not let the girl to grow. Both the adults and children regarding reading, art and music, they regard arts, reading and music as feminine, and mathematics, athletics and mechanical skills as masculine. So if you see these engineering courses as well, now things are changing, but a few years ago or maybe a decade ago, if you see, all these engineering courses were taken up only by men, especially automobile engineering or mechanical engineering. You could hardly find one or two girls in the engineering courses. So now women are breaking those stereotypes, and they are proving it wrong, that it is not just the men who are good at maths. The women are also intellectual, they also are cognitive, and they can also achieve what all these years where there was a stereotype that only men can do this. So hence we can say that although physically male and female are different, but intellectually, cognitive or behavioral differences do not exist between the men or the women.